Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and this afternoon we're going to have a look at the latest on Hurricane Henri, which is moving up the east coast of America towards New York, New Jersey, and is likely to make direct landfall across Long Island. It's a very significant storm, similar to what we saw with Hurricane Sandy in terms of track, that we saw that quite a few years ago, that had devastating economic impacts simply because it hit so many populous areas. This is likely to include many of those areas once again, so could be quite a devastating storm here, even though it is only forecast to be around Cat 1, Cat 2 hurricane just before it makes landfall. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and do remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link is in the description. Also have my UK updates out later, so do keep an eye for that, as we've got some thunderstorms and some heavy rain heading through the UK at the moment. But if we do have a look at the latest satellite data for Hurricane Henri, it's currently actually a tropical storm, but it's very soon to be upgraded, so we might as well be calling it Hurricane Henri. Now, you can see it's quite a large system, and you can see its core centre is currently quite far off the coast of America, heading northwards up towards New York, New Jersey, and Long Island. You can see it on its outer bands, it's got quite a lot of convection still going on, with some thunderstorms and lightning strikes detected by these yellow dots. If we do have a look at this infrared data, which shows you where the deepest convection is taken at the moment, you can see it's towards the centre, just to the southeast of the centre of the low pressure system. Very significant deepening and very high cloud top, showing the significant convection taking off at the moment as it heads northwards. But you can see this is a very large system with a lot of outer bands, so that's why at the moment Manhattan, New York isn't likely to see a direct impact from the centre of the storm, but not too far off its centre will still be very, very strong with storm surges, very heavy rain, so it's likely to have quite widespread impacts. If we go back to the visible and we do turn on sea surface temperatures, this is very important for forecasting hurricane tropical storms, as we need, for storms to maintain their strength, we need 26 to 27 degrees plus, that's Celsius. And you can see by this map, we are currently seeing tropical storm Hurricane Henri staying around 29 degree waters, which can be significantly deepening it and strengthening it. However, as it heads northwards, there's quite a strong gradient, down from 29 degrees all the way down to sort of 25, 24 degrees, just before it makes landfall. Now, the storm's going to be moving quite slowly, but in this last maybe 6 hours, it is forecasted at the moment to have its winds drop down a little bit to from maximum Cat 2 hurricane to maybe Cat 1, or back to a strong tropical storm. So at the moment, it's these sea surface temperatures that might actually be a saving grace to some areas, as it will weaken the storm as it approaches, but it really depends on its exact speed and how long it does get to weaken before it makes landfall. So at the moment, that's one positive we can say, is that the sea surface temperatures right before landfall are not ideal, meaning hopefully this storm does decrease in strength as it does make landfall, but it's still looking like it's going to be a massive rainfall event and still strong storm surge, even if the winds do start to diminish for landfall. If we do have a look at the latest radar, you can see the centre of the storm isn't quite on American radar at the moment, but you can see its outer bands with quite some heavy rain and some thunderstorms are heading northwards. You can even see one of the outer bands is actually making its way towards Long Island, New Jersey, into New York. So we'll really have to keep an eye on how this does develop, but it is looking like quite a significant storm, potentially even quite early on, heading up, impacting New York and the surrounding areas. If we do have a look at the future radar, now it's a pretty inaccurate, but it does give a general sense of where the storm is positioned, and you can see significant convection taking away around the storm, heading northwards before veering into landfall along Long Island. So yeah, got to really keep an eye out for this. Could be very significant, and yeah, I'm praying that there's not too much damage associated with this storm, but at this stage we've just got to keep our fingers crossed. If we do have a look at the latest from the National Hurricane Centre, you can see at the moment we do have three systems. We've got Tropical Storm Henri, which is at 70 miles per hour, very significant tropical storm, potentially getting up to hurricane over the next few hours before it makes landfall within sort of 36 to 48 hours. We also have Hurricane Grace, which is now starting to downgrade as it makes landfall, but it took a very interesting track from Jamaica all the way across Mexico, back into the Gulf of Mexico, and then back into Mexico once again. And it was actually a major hurricane at one point. Just before landfall, it got to Cat 3 status. Now it is downgrading, but it's still got 90-mile-an-hour winds, but it will very, very quickly diminish and is forecasted to pretty much be gone within the next 48 hours as a tropical system. So yeah, significant hurricane there, but it's not hitting as populous areas as Hurricane Henri. So Hurricane Henri, even though it's weaker, is most likely going to be having more significant economic impacts for many areas. We also have another disturbance out as a tropical wave heading out from Africa, and we'll just have to keep an eye on that over the next few days. Not forecast to rapidly deepen over the next sort of few days, but sort of 5 to 7 day time frame, we've got to keep an eye on how that does develop. If we do zoom into Hurricane Henri, if we do first go to its current track, you can see at the moment heading due north before veering into Long Island, New Jersey, New York, and then into parts of Connecticut, into sort of New York State, and then veering out as a very significant storm. You can see right before landfall, around 2 p.m. local time tomorrow, it may be downgraded to a tropical storm, but it's likely to be a hurricane right until it hits those cooler than average sea surface well, not cooler than average, but cooler than required sea surface temperatures. And then it takes very slow progress inland. Big rainfall maker for many areas, even if they're not directly impact on landfall. A lot of rain before it does veer out, gets caught up in the jet stream, and could potentially start to influence the UK's weather. At this stage, it's not looking particularly likely that it's going to be rapidly deepening into another low pressure system as it heads towards the UK, but it could have a little bit of a impact on the jet stream. If we do have a look at the storm surge, we can see at the moment around 3 to 5 feet. So it's not a massive storm surge, but you can see there's a lot of low-lying areas, especially around Long Island, into the Manhattan area. So we could be seeing some flooding in a few areas, and you can see a lot of low-lying land here, all the way from Connecticut, Rhode Island, through Massachusetts, through New York and down into New Jersey. So we'll just have to really keep an eye on what happens with this. Not all areas will be flooded, but some areas I do suspect could get a surprising amount of water, and I expect at the moment we're going to be seeing a lot of precautions being taken place along the shoreline here. If we do have a look at the US rainfall totals, or rainfall estimates, you can see widely 4 to 6 inches, if not getting up towards 10 inches plus along its centre through New Jersey into New York, and even around Manhattan seeing 6 to 10 inches potentially. But you can see it's a very widespread rainfall event, a very large area seeing 2, 4 inches plus, which is nearing 100 millimetres of rain for a very large area. And it is very slow moving, so even many areas quite far inland into parts of central sort of New York State can still be seeing 6 to 10 inches of rain simply because of how slow moving it is, with a lot of rain falling. If we do have a look at flash flood potential, you can see that very well shown. You can see a big area of high or moderate into high for flash flooding. In this really big really big area from New York, New Jersey, all the way up through many states, and then a very, very wide marginal risk of flash flooding as well from this storm. So some very, very populous areas could be getting quite severely impacted from this, and I'm really praying at the moment we're not going to be seeing anything near as severe as Hurricane Sandy that we saw many years ago, but at this stage we can't really say if it is or isn't. It's just going to have to depend on what happens over the next sort of 48 hours as this storm does develop. If we have a look at the most likely arrival times of winds, it is around sort of, if we have a look at the moment, you can see it is arriving around Sunday morning into mid-afternoon of tropical storm force winds. It's going to be a large area of tropical storm force winds, so even early morning we could be seeing those significant tropical storm force winds approaching the coast. Landfall, as I said, will be later in the day, but still still can see some significant impacts tonight into tomorrow morning and throughout most of Sunday. And even into Monday, Tuesday, still be a lot of heavy rain, even if the winds, storm surge do start to subside. If we do lastly have a look at the latest from the GFS, just to have a look at what its longer term outlook is. You can see it's this storm right here, or this trough of low pressure. And over the next sort of 24, 48 hours, it's going to rapidly deepen as it approaches Long Island. And you can see that really deep low pressure system. As it heads inland, you see it does weaken, but it remains almost stationary before pulling out back out into the Atlantic and joining in the jet stream into this larger area, and then it gets absorbed into this larger area of low pressure, which is heading up towards Greenland, Iceland, and potentially towards the UK. But at the moment, UK forecast for a big area of high pressure to remain over the top of the UK. So it does look like this low pressure is going to sort of skirt over the top of that, not impacting the UK at all. So a very significant storm coming. I will likely update this once again tomorrow if and when the storm comes into more radar view, so we can make a little bit better estimations on significant impacts. But it does look like it could be another very severe storm, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of news headlines over the next few days about the climate change impacts with this sort of storm. So it's going to be a very significant storm for many areas. If you are watching this and you are in those areas, make sure you stay safe. And if you are near the coast, potentially you may need to evacuate, but make sure you do follow your local weather and environmental providers, as I'm sure they've making the necessary plans at the moment. So anyway, make sure to check out my UK forecast out later, and I'll see you again for another video later this afternoon.